Yeah.
for me, my analysis of what's happening in Quebec is mainly that the people of Quebec have kind of been, let's say, thrown in under the bus by basically the mainstream media in Canada, especially coming from the SNC Lavalin case, where it's what Yves Francois Blanchet brought up
Hmm.
during the debates was that those workers for SNC Lavalin are not the ones at fault for what the Justin Trudeau did, because he specifically said that Justin Trudeau did the wrong thing,
Hmm.
and whatever, and which is what he did with interfering with the judicial process. But the people in Quebec are not to be blamed for that, and I think that resonated with the people of Quebec because one of his main message from Yves Francois Blanchet was that choose people who are like you and who are for you. Basically, sparking up that identity
Hmm.
debate that we've constantly been hearing about. That's why on the debate stage, he's always talks to Quebec about Quebec as a nation and etc. And I think that is part of the resurgence of the Bloc Québécois. The fact that even when it comes to federalism, being seeing that okay, all the liberals are gonna be like when it comes to uh, the secularism bill, they're most likely gonna interfere if the outcome of it
Hmm.
isn't favorable to them, right? And just stuff like that. It just seems like
Hmm.
Quebec, the people of Quebec wanted somebody that was really like them and who would defend them against other provinces or the federal government interfering within what they have to do. Like you constantly kept hearing that about how Yves-François
Hmm.
Blanchet was talking about the federal government meddling with it within the Quebec nation, and I think that was one of the main reasons why the Bloc Québécois resurged this election.
Yeah. And it's just like it's important to think of Quebec in terms of its history and its voting patterns, you know. So Canada as a whole, most of Canada is pretty predictable in terms of voting. So we know that the West usually is conservative, and we know that Ontario and the East is more inclined towards the
Mm-hmm.
liberals and the left, you know. So, but Quebec has always been that one province which has just has. I'm not sure. I don't have the number on top of my head right now, but
Mm-hmm.
they have an enormous amount of seats in parliament, and they usually just they vote in waves, and they're really unpredictable, you know. So for the longest time, Quebec used to just be associated with liberals because they were francophones, and then
Mm-hmm.
they were a Catholic minority, you know. So and they had really bad history with the conservative governments, especially right after the Confederation. Um, s but then after a while,
Mm-hmm.
with Brian Mulroney, they're able to they started voting conservative at some point, and then they changed back to liberal. They went to a NDP phase, and then there was the Bloc Québécois that came along, and then you had in 2011
Mm-hmm.
Quebec went to the NDP,
Mm-hmm.
and in 2015 they went to the Liberals, and then now again you have Quebec that is split between the
Mm-hmm.
Conservative, the Bloc Québécois, and the Liberals, you know. But the
It has to
biggest
be.
loser there is the NDP, and we kind of talked about this last
Mm-hmm.
time as we were talking about Bill 21 and how Jagmeet Singh, despite being a minority and having his campaign, um, like one of the themes of the campaign being about how he's this sort of uh, social justice
Mm-hmm.
um, candidate, you know, and despite all of that, he didn't want to intervene. And we talked about how
Mm-hmm.
the NDPs weren't polling well in Quebec, and we've seen that. And the NDPs didn't just do badly in Quebec; they
Mm-hmm.
did badly almost everywhere else. Yeah.